but joining me here in the studio is our Moscow correspondent, Ivor Bennett. Ivor, welcome to the studio.
Great to be here.
Yeah, really great to, not be doing it down the line from Moscow or St Petersburg, where you've been in the last few days. But we can talk about, all of the things that's going on in Russia in a moment. But I just want you to talk to us a little bit about reaction to that letter that President Zelenskyy wrote, because I did say to President Zelenskyy, he described it as rude. And when you read the interview, I mean, it is quite cheeky and at times quite insulting.
Insolent was the word Vladimir Putin used. I think, first of all, Volodymyr Zelenskyy is right that the format of this threat, this offer, the open letter in the middle of this economic forum was the way to get Putin to respond. It would have looked strange if he hadn't, because he had this Q&A session the day afterwards, and this letter was the talk of not just the Western press, but also the Russian press, so he had to respond. But the response, nonetheless, was very surprising, because normally threats, ultimatums, they get batted away very quickly, doesn't give them much airtime. But this time he did. He talked about the letter for about 10 minutes, which was strange, and the response felt prepared, had lots of taunts in of his own. He poked fun at Zelenskyy's outfits, calling them Rambo style, in the same way as Donald Trump has in the past. He's never done that before. He kept referring to Zelenskyy not by name, but as the author of the letter, several times. And he also had a retort planned on the quip about his age. So that all seemed quite strange for someone who'd claimed to have only skim-read the letter, right? And I think, to me, that kind of betrays some unease, concern within the Kremlin at the prevailing narrative right now that Ukraine is in the ascendancy, that Russia's on the back foot. It felt like a part of this attempt to reclaim the narrative, reassert Vladimir Putin's authority, put Zelenskyy in his place, at least in the eyes of the Russian people. And just on the substance of Zelenskyy's letter and this offer to freeze the lines of contact where they are, would Russia go for it? The simple answer is no, and the reason is because it's just not enough for Putin to declare victory with, right? After such a long war, he has to have something substantive to show for it, after all the cost. And we have to remember what this was sold as to the Russian people. It was, we're going to go and do this to protect Russian speakers in those eastern parts of Ukraine. He annexed those 4 regions very early on in the conflict. We can see them here. September 2022, here's the front line. But if he's going to come away from this, having only claimed not all of the Donbass, and this is the advances over the time, he's still got 15% of Donetsk region that's in Ukrainian hands. If he's going to come away with this, not all of the Donbass, then that's a much harder sell to the Russian public saying, yes, we won. Because people could start to say, well, hang on, was this really worth it? Why did we do this?
Right. So many lives lost, so much money. And we'll get to the Russian economy in a moment. But, when I asked him about Abramovich being a go-between, he talked about the fact that he'd brought this message about the Donbass. And again, President Zelenskyy made it very clear that Donbass is not up for grabs. So, in their own way, the Ukrainians are making it clear that this is not a bargaining chip that we're willing to use. But we're just going to keep you there for a second, Ivor, because we're going to go back to that interview with the Ukrainian president. He has been emphasising the urgent need to ramp up production of weapons to combat Russia's powerful hypersonic ballistic missiles. Just have a listen to the rest of the interview. You talked about the vulnerabilities you have with the air defences and the support you need, and you've reached out to the Americans asking for more Patriots, and we can talk about that in a moment. But at present, 70% of Russia's population is in the sight of your missiles and your drones. We saw in the last week, St Petersburg hit twice. What message are you sending the Russian people?
We produced a lot of different drones and different missiles. We still don't have ballistic, but we are now on the way. We're very close. So it's our response. Our attacks to St Petersburg on the military goals, by the way, or energy, after his attacks on our energy. So, and our response to the territory of Moscow region, it's our response and answer that we will not just silently die, and we will respond, and we will be stronger and stronger each day day by day. It's true, by the way. It's true. Now we have more than 400 companies. Can you imagine we didn't have them? Putin understands only when there is a total pressure on him, when you're strong, when your answers are strong. That's why we show that our drones will come to the cities. I said to the city because we already did it during long period of time, villages and etc. We responded small cities, but they live in St Petersburg and they live in Moscow and they don't think what's going on in other cities of Russia. So we tried it to show them that we will be closer and closer and will bring back their war on the territory from where this war came to us.
President Zelenskyy speaking to me while he was here in London on his trip. Let's discuss it further with Ivor. I mean, the one thing that really came across with this interview with President Zelenskyy was how the technology has changed the battleground. You know, the drones that they're using, the sort of drones that they've developed, I think they're on their 7th generation. The Russians have learnt a lot from them, but the Ukrainians still have some vulnerabilities, you know, with some of these missiles. And he certainly talked there about the hypersonic missiles as well.
Yeah, so Zelensky's big thing now, he wants more air defences, right? And he's appealing for help there because it's, as you say, it's to do with Russia's hypersonic missile known as the Oreshnik missile. It's intermediate range, nuclear-capable ballistic missile. So it range more than 5,000 kilometres, we can see here, and that's the potential. That's the minimum, I believe. And the speed, it can travel up to 13,000 kilometres per hour, we're told. And according to Vladimir Putin, it's impossible to intercept. So no existing weapons air defence system can get near it. I mean, some Western experts dispute that latest claim, the one about not possible to intercept it, saying that's overblown. But even so, its use on the battlefield is seen by Europe as an escalation. I think and it's been used 3 times in the conflict so far. Earliest, kind of 18 months ago, most recently 2 weeks ago. And what's really interesting is how much Vladimir Putin's been talking about it in recent months. And this is the damage from the latest hit, I think. And he talked about it even last week in St Petersburg in this economic forum, saying, look, we haven't used it in combat scenario yet. It's only been test-fired with dummy warheads, as if to say, look, we're just testing it out. We're going to see how we might use it. And it was a very thinly veiled kind of rattling of the sabre. And I think that's partly to try and scare Europe, to remind them how powerful Russia's arsenal is. And look, don't back Kiev too much because we can lash out. And I think it's also to try and get the attention of Donald Trump, because we have to remember that the Trump administration-led peace talks represents, I think, Vladimir Putin's best way out of this, right? The best possible outcome. And of course, he's now totally engaged with the Middle East. He's not paying any attention to Ukraine. I think Putin, with these threats of escalation, wants Donald Trump to get back engaged, trying to grab his attention as if to say, look, if you don't re-engage here with the peace process, things could get messy. Things could escalate. Yeah,
I mean, it's clear that on one level, you know, he's stuck, even though he talks about being able to, not necessarily happily, but continuing with this war. The one thing that is clear this year, though, Ivor, and you've been monitoring this for some time, is that the Russian economy is starting to be impacted. It's contracted. For years, we've heard, you know, different types of intel that the Russian economy was going to collapse. That clearly isn't the case, but it is starting to show that, you know, this war is taking its toll.
Yeah, I think we can agree that the economy is under pressure. I think everyone can agree with that, even Russia. There are challenges. It's not about to collapse, but it's showing strain. After years of high growth because of all the military spending, the growth now is dipping. And there are all the numbers and evidence points to stagnation. But what was amazing last week at this kind of flagship economic forum and this investment event, the Russian Davos, as it's known, here's Vladimir Putin speaking at it, was that the defiance on show, not just from him, but also from politicians, officials, and also businessmen saying, yeah, okay, there are challenges, but we can ride them out. we've got this. And I think we can just play a clip of an interview I did with the CEO of VTB Bank, which is the second biggest bank in Russia, and just to give a sense of that defiance. Let's have a listen. How much longer, though, can the Russian economy endure the current situation that you refer to, the sanctions, the ongoing military spending?
The Russian economy somehow adjusted to the sanctions. We switched from Western technology, we switched from export to Europe, for example, or Western countries to the global south, to East, to China, to India, to other, mainly to China, of course. And we bring in technology from China. And I think from this point of view, we somehow coped with the sanctions. We learned how to make a payment in local currencies.
Just on the military spending, though, if that continues at current levels, I mean, how much longer can that continue like that?
Well, I think that as long as the war continues. I mean, you can't conduct war without military expenses, I'm afraid.
So it can continue for as long as it needs, you think, with the economy as it is?
Of course, we are quite ready to sign peaceful agreement, to reach an agreement on certain terms, of course, but otherwise the Russian economy can cope with these expenses for, I don't know,
for as long as it needs.
As long as it needs, I'm afraid, yeah.
So I think that was really, really revealing. So at the forum, in public, very much a united front. We can go on as long as we need. But behind closed doors, there are reports and signs of a split, of a division within the elite. So you've got one side, you've got the hardliners, the nationalists, who say, look, war comes first no matter the cost. We're in this existential battle with the West. On the other side, there's the more kind of business-oriented group that say, look, it's time for a peace deal. Look at all the economic benefits, lifting of sanctions, foreign investment. But despite that, no sign of Vladimir Putin changing course yet.
Ivor, really great to have you in the studio here with us, and I'm glad that we could play part of that interview as well. Thanks so much for joining us.